Good evening. It's 8 o'clock. The top headlines tonight. Well, the bad news is that India's second COVID growth wave rate is now the highest ever. It's beaten the earlier peak of June last year, says the Cabinet Secretary in a meeting with secretaries of 11 states of grave concern. In Chhattisgarh, look at these pictures. Dead bodies are piling up at a Durg morgue. In Pune, mini lockdown announced on tomorrow. There'll be a 6 p.m., 6 a.m. curfew. All malls, restaurants, public places are shut. Similar restrictions likely across Maharashtra as the Chief Minister will address the state at 8:30. Delhi crosses 3,500 cases, but no lockdown, says the Chief Minister. Instead, open vaccinations for all ages. We must have it on a war footing. Husband positive. The Congress star campaigner Priyanka Gandhi's campaigns are called off in 3 election states. Meanwhile, corona positive Sachin Tendulkar is now in hospital. Actor Alia Bhatt also tests positive as corona spreads across states. Priyanka Assam campaign cancelled amid this Assam shocker. An EVM with poll officials found in a BJP candidate's car. Opposition outrage at what they say is an EVM loot. The BJP candidate says it was a humanitarian gesture. He gave a lift to EC officials whose car had broken down, but the EC orders a repolling in the booth and suspends officials. Priyanka asked for a review of EVMs. Amid the Tamil Nadu election campaign, Stalin's daughter and son-in-law are raided. The DMK complains to the Election Commission as Udayanidhi Stalin says, raid my home, not my sister's. That's why Get Vaccinated India, a record 36 lakh people vaccinated yesterday, its highest ever. From corporates to RWA is a huge vaccination outreach. Our lead story tonight. Well, we all know India's second COVID wave is here, but here's an indication of just how serious it is. In the last 24 hours, our cases crossed 81,000. That's the highest in 6 months. In comparison, just a week ago, our weekly average was under 50,000 cases a day. The second wave is far, far steeper than the first one and is yet to peak. Globally, this puts India at par with the United States as far as total weekly cases are concerned. In the US, officials are now fearing a fourth wave. However, the reproduction factor of the virus in India is significantly higher than the US, which means that cases could rise faster here. Now, here's the tragedy of the second COVID wave, which is hitting hundreds of families now every day. With 469 deaths in 24 hours, the average number of daily deaths in India is the highest since mid-December. And for every day last week, this has been rising at an alarming rate of about 50%. This is why doctors and experts, officials have one message: vaccinate and wear masks, which could reduce the chances of severe cases and deaths. The Cabinet Secretary today had a meeting with the Chief Secretaries, the Health Secretaries and the Police Chiefs of 11 states, of which he said were of grave concern. And look at this. He pointed out that the growth rate was actually the highest that India has seen, that COVID cases is at its fastest growth rate this year in March compared to a previous high last year in June of 5.5%. So look at the COVID cases growth rate. 11 states, the Chief Secretary said, are a matter of grave concern. These include, of course, Maharashtra and Chhattisgarh, Kerala, Delhi, Haryana, many, Punjab, of course. He also said it's worrisome that Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities are recording a high number of cases. So let's just look at this absolutely shocking story. Now, Chhattisgarh recorded the highest number of cases in India, the second highest number of cases in India in the last 24 hours. And in Durg, a major district in Chhattisgarh, just look at these tragic visuals where bodies are piling up in morgues.
A body pile-up at the mortuary of the government hospital in Chhattisgarh's Durg, the epicenter of the state's second COVID wave. Just in the last week, 38 people have died of COVID in the district and over 6,000 have been infected by the coronavirus. The mortuary at this 500-bedded government hospital in Durg has 8 freezers, but 27 bodies. Doctors say they are trying to hand them over to relatives soonest, but they simply cannot cope.
10 पेशेंट करीब आते हैं भर्ती होने और हमारा डेथ का आंकड़ा जो है 4 करीब है, 4 से 5। मरकरी में बहुत संख्या में मुझे पता चला है कि डेड बॉडी रखी हुई है जिसको कितनी की कार्रवाई कर रही है।
Similar scenes at this crematorium in Durg, with relatives in PPE suits performing last rites of those who have died from the virus. The visuals, a rerun of last year's horror during the first COVID wave, when scenes like these were reported across the country. Worried over the rapidly worsening situation, the Chhattisgarh government has announced a full lockdown in Durg for a week starting next Tuesday. But it's not just Durg that is a worry. Cases across Chhattisgarh have risen 369% in 2 weeks, the second fastest in the country, and things only seem to be getting worse. With Somesh Patel in Durg, Usama Shab for NDTV.
So Chhattisgarh, the state with the second highest case in the last 24 hours. Maharashtra, of course, the state which is really the epicenter of India's second wave. The figures here extremely worrying. The chief minister has been holding a review meeting and a mini lockdown announced in Pune today. Let's go across to Purva, who is outside the chief minister's residence right now. Now, Purva, of course, the chief minister's own wife and son were both COVID positive. The chief minister's wife in hospital. What is likely? Are we going to see similar announcement like what happened in Pune, where there's a curfew now from tomorrow from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m.?
Well, in fact, in just about 30 odd minutes, the CM will address the state. So right now also I am outside the CM residence. He's already finished speaking with the officials. And in Pune earlier in the day, how the restrictions came out, where there is a curfew from 6 p.m. until 6 a.m. and a lot of other restrictions like restaurants, malls, cinema halls would be shut for 7 days. Then even the places of worship are shut for 7 days. So what we can expect from CM for the entire state, whether he will be shutting down the places of worship or the religious and the social and political gatherings, and what happens to the weddings which are already decided and are already in the month of April. Is there any restrictions on that? That needs to be seen. The main Mumbai local trains, whether there will be any kind of restrictions on Mumbai local train, whether the CM announces that we are going to go back to only allowing essentials people to use the Mumbai local train, that needs to be seen as well. So because in Mumbai we are seeing that the number of cases are going up also because of the public transport, especially the local trains. Also, what are the announcements for the offices, whether there will be a work from home or not, that needs to be also seen, whether it's going to be a mandatory for private offices to get into only the work from home zone. What happens to all the people if they are allowing home deliveries?
Yes, and as you've seen that surge, whether it's Mumbai. Yes, Mumbai and Pune, both over 8,000 cases. India's worst affected districts, 8 out of 10 are in Maharashtra. Let's see what Uddhav Thackeray says at 8:30. But what about Delhi, India's capital? Now, we are seeing a fresh surge here as well. The Chief Minister, Arvind Kejriwal, also had an emergency meeting. He spoke after that saying, no need for a national lockdown, but open up vaccines for all in a war footing.
अभी जो स्थिति है, सरकार में लॉकडाउन किसी भी तरह का करने का कोई विचार नहीं है. हम स्थिति पे नजर रखे हुए हैं. और दूसरा ये कि अब ये उम्र 45 साल की उम्र वाला क्लॉज हटा के और सारी जनता को एक साथ वैक्सीनेट, युद्ध स्तर के ऊपर वैक्सीनेशन करने का कार्य कर देना चाहिए, ताकि हमें सबको इससे निजात मिल सके, कोरोना से निजात मिल सके. तो मैं उम्मीद करता हूं कि केंद्र सरकार इसको पूरे गौर करेगी और युद्ध स्तर के ऊपर राज्य सरकारों को अपने स्तर पे वैक्सीनेशन करने की इजाजत देगी.
So vaccinations really key. Get vaccinated India. So let's just look at our record vaccination numbers yesterday of 36 lakhs. But remember, this is still way less than what it's actually meant to be. So if we just compare where India is actually versus the world, well, we can look at those numbers. India rising, but we're still in absolute numbers, but we're still way behind in vaccination rates, which is really key. Let's just look now at the record high of India's vaccination, which was yesterday, but also an outreach now amongst corporates, amongst RWAs to get people vaccinated. Let's just look at that report.
"46-year-old Shishupal earns about 10,000 rupees a month cleaning cars and sends most of it home. Despite the fear of catching COVID, 500 rupees for 2 vaccine doses was out of his reach. But he's getting this for free after his employer organized a camp with Medanta Hospital, A total of 1,200 employees will be vaccinated over the next few days.
आसानी होगी जी, कहीं हॉस्पिटल में जाना पड़ता तो परेशान होते, लाइन में लगना पड़ता। यहाँ कितना बढ़िया रहा कि काम मेरे टीका भी लग गया। अभी छोटे मोटे आदमी के लिए 250 रुपये बहुत है।
Gurugram administration has allowed hospitals to set up vaccine camps on office premises.
We dedicate to each camp roughly 16 to 17 people. They are the different specialty people, and we keep our ambulance ready for any eventuality. We follow as per the protocol of the district administration.
But corporates aren't the only ones bringing the gift of the jab to people's doorstep. Resident welfare associations are doing it too. Getting a jab this easily is a boon for Mr. Garg, who has been on dialysis for the last 5 years and was hospitalized for 12 days a few months ago when he got COVID. His wife is a cardiac patient.
हमको ड्राइवर अरेंज करेंगे, सब चीज़ें अरेंज करके हॉस्पिटल जाएं और वहाँ पे 2 घंटे लगे, 3 घंटे लगे, वी डोंट नो कितना टाइम लगेगा। यहाँ पे लगाने का कन्वीनियंट यही है, विद इन द सोसाइटी, जस्ट वॉक इन and we have to go and sit down our club only.
Residential societies in Delhi do not have the permission for holding vaccination camps, but here too resident welfare associations are doing their bit.
हम लोग यहाँ से हमने 2 हॉस्पिटल से टाई अप कर रखा है, एक वन इज फिनिक्स एंड सेकंड इज SCI हॉस्पिटल। हम लोगों का पूरा एक प्रॉपर्ली एक लिस्ट बना के उनका रजिस्ट्रेशन करा के देन वी गो, उनको हम हॉस्पिटल वालों को अपनी लिस्ट भेजते हैं, तो वहाँ पे उनको वैक्सीनेट वो लोग करते हैं।
While India carried out its highest daily vaccinations of over 36 lakh yesterday, it is still behind many countries like US, UK and Canada in terms of doses administered per 100 people of the population. And that is why the government needs to ensure that vaccination camps like these at corporates as well as residential societies are allowed as a pan-India practice. In Gurugram, with camera person Sushil Rathi, this is Sukirti Dwivedi for NDTV.
And COVID really, in a sense, spares nobody. Doesn't matter. There's no divisions here. It doesn't matter what class you're from, whether you're a VIP, whether you're an ordinary person. It spares no one. So, looking again at the headlines of who's getting COVID now, as those numbers are surging, well, for the Congress, a setback, as one of the star campaigners, Priyanka Gandhi Vadra, had to cancel campaigns in 3 states as she went into self-isolation after her husband, Robert Vadra, tested positive. Meanwhile, cricketer Sachin Tendulkar, who had tested positive a few days ago, has been hospitalized after doctor's advice. Also, actors Alia Bhatt today tweeted that she's tested positive as well.
COVID-19, the big equalizer, sparing no one. Alia Bhatt, Sachin Tendulkar, Kartik Aaryan, Vappi Lahiri, Rohit Saraf. As a more contagious double mutation of the virus takes over parts of the country, especially Maharashtra, it is sparing no one. Of the over 3,67,000 active cases in Maharashtra, B-Town's bigwigs are no exception. And neither are the politicians. After Robert Vadra tested positive, Priyanka Gandhi has self-isolated as well. Her campaign engagements in Assam, Tamil Nadu and Kerala are now on hold.
Just to say that I've been exposed to the coronavirus. So although I tested negative yesterday, the doctors have advised that I self-isolate for a few days. Unfortunately, I have to cancel the program that was scheduled for me.
An NDTV Bureau report.
And well, Priyanka Gandhi cancelled her campaign rallies in Assam, but expressed her outrage and said that EVMs must be reviewed. The use of EVMs in elections must be reviewed after this shocking instance of where an EVM and poll officials were found in a BJP candidate's car. This comes, of course, as the opposition has earlier complained as well of similar incidents and asking why BJP candidates or BJP associates are always linked. The Election Commission issued a statement saying that in this case, the Election Commission's car had broken down, so the officials took a lift. The fact that it was in a BJP candidate's car with an EVM was just coincidence. The opposition isn't buying that.
A viral video, widespread outrage, angry crowds. This SUV on Thursday night near Nilam Bazar in Karimganj district of Barak Valley region of Assam, as to their shock, inside this car, clearly visible, an electronic voting machine. Voting ended yesterday in Barak Valley. More shockingly, this car belongs to Krishnendu Paul, a BJP candidate from Patharkandi. The vehicle is registered in his wife's name as per his Election Commission affidavit. Inside the car were poll officials with the EVM. Interestingly, the EVM is from another constituency. An embarrassed Election Commission immediately ordered action, repoll and suspension of poll officials in charge of transporting the EVMs. The district administration said the polling team vehicle had broken down and they were just taking a lift with the BJP candidate's car, corroborated by the driver.
Why Election Commission इंक्वायरी कर रहे हैं, लेकिन वो गाड़ी आ रहे, वो गाड़ी खराब हो गया करीमगंज से 10 किलोमीटर आगे। तब हमारा वो गाड़ी को सिग्नल दिया, तब बारिश गिर रहा था, तो ह्यूमैनिटेरियन ग्राउंड वो जो हेल्प करने के लिए तो उन लोगों को ये किया है, तो हमारा भाई और ड्राइवर ने तो बोला ठीक है।
But this has led to a much larger political storm over the Election Commission's credibility regarding EVMs, with Priyanka Gandhi Vadra, the Congress star campaigner in Assam, saying all political parties must review the use of EVMs.
आगे आगे देखिए अब क्या होगा कि जो चुनाव आगे बढ़ता जाएगा, ये एक और इल्जाम लगाएंगे, ये आरोप लगाएंगे कि बीजेपी ने मशीनों में कुछ ऐसा यंत्र फिक्स कर दिया था कि बटन तो दबाया जा रहा था हाथ का, लेकिन वोट जा रहा था कमल को। तो ये सारी बातें, और अब लोग इतने समझदार हो गए और हमारा सारा युवा वोटर, आई डोंट थिंक इससे कोई बहुत अधिक अंतर। जांच अपनी जगह होती रहेगी।
शिकस्त यानी हार को सामने देखकर भारतीय जनता पार्टी जो करती है वही कर रही है। ईवीएम चोरी, ईवीएम चोरी से होने वाला कुछ नहीं है।
While the Election Commission had stated that there were 1,300 vehicles at that point of time travelling towards Karimganj carrying polling personnel on the national highway, however, one big question remained unanswered is that why did this polling team actually hitch a lift from the BJP candidate's car? Was it a mere coincidence or not? With inputs from Arvind Gunashekhar in New Delhi, in Guwahati, Ratndeep Chaudhary for NDTV.
Meanwhile, also opposition outrage in Tamil Nadu, where DMK chief Stalin's daughter and son-in-law have been raided today. The son-in-law is a key advisor for Stalin. Stalin's son also issued a strong statement saying that raid my house, why raid my sisters? But meanwhile, the DMK has complained to the Election Commission and the opposition asking how can the income tax carry out these raids just before elections in Tamil Nadu next week. Income tax sources told NDTV this is because they had inputs of cash collection.
Income tax raids on DMK chief MK Stalin's son-in-law on a day when the Prime Minister was campaigning in South Tamil Nadu. Officers arrived at the Chennai residence of Sabarisan, who is considered a key strategist and advisor of Stalin and is married to his only daughter. There were separate IT raids on former Minister Senthil Balaji, Tiruvannamalai MP Annadurai and a few others. Income tax sources told NDTV it was based on inputs on cash movement.
In 2019 Lok Sabha elections, the DMK Congress alliance swept the polls, winning 38 of the 39 seats. And these searches, interestingly, take place at a time when the Prime Minister is also campaigning for the AIADMK BJP alliance down south in Madurai.
The DMK has complained to the Election Commission, alleging abuse of the IT department by the ruling NDA.
நான் என் அட்ரஸ் கொடுக்கிறேன், என் வீட்டு அட்ரஸ் கொடுக்கிறேன். 25/9 சென்டாஃப் ரோடு, சித்தரஞ்சன் சாலை, சென்னை. தைரியம் தான் என் வீட்டுக்கு வா, ரைட். நீ தைரியம் தான் என் வீட்டுக்கு வா.
This even as Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who was in Madurai and visited the Meenakshi Amman temple, said the DMK and Congress family rule would bring lawlessness and lack of safety for women. Referring to earlier power struggle between Stalin and his Madurai-based brother Aragiri, and also recent controversial comments of DMK leader A. Raja.
The law and order situation will suffer under them. DMK tried to make peace-loving Madurai a mafia den just because of internal family complication in DMK first family.
This is the second campaign visit of the Prime Minister to Tamil Nadu. DMK candidates have been cheekily tweeting to invite Mr. Modi to their constituency, claiming it would increase their victory margin. South Tamil Nadu, where the Prime Minister is campaigning, is critical for the AIADMK combined to emerge victorious. Out of 58 seats here, the AIADMK won 32 in 2016. South Tamil Nadu is a Tevar caste belt. The 10.5% quota promised to the 1 years by the AIADMK government may have a backlash here. OPS belongs to this politically dominant Tevar caste, but the sidelining of Sasikala and the dominance of the Gounders in the last 3 years under EPS may alienate the Tevar vote away from the AIADMK. With Sam Daniel in Chennai, Uma Sudhir, NDTV.
Many people, including celebrities, are out there and they're actually brand ambassadors getting vaccinated today. Malaika Arora got vaccinated as well. And of course, besides Malaika, NDTV's very own Vishnu Shom, who's been saying that on prime time every night, get out there and get vaccinated.
Well, it's important for us to practice what we preach. For the last 1 year plus, we've been talking about vaccination, vaccination, vaccination virtually every day. Now, the numbers thus far have been very encouraging. More than 36 lakh Indians have actually vaccinated. And today I'm going to walk the talk. I'm going to get my vaccination as well. It's something I've looked forward to for a long time. Thanks, ma'am, very much for taking me through this. I can't tell you how excited I am to actually get this vaccination. We waited. All right, well, there you have it. Time for my jab. And remember, and to remind myself, I need to take the second jab as well. And that's going to come after some time. So it's 28 days, and then after that, between 4 to 8 weeks for this particular vaccine. Important to stick to that schedule to ensure that you get maximum efficacy. And that's it. Thank you very much. Didn't feel a thing. Well, I've just had my jab right now. And I was told I needed to come to this room and I needed to wait. The director of Multan with me, Dr. Handa, thanks very much for speaking to me. You were absolutely clear with me. No question of any moving outside. You have to sit over here for 30 minutes. That's part of the protocol, right?
That's part of the protocol, and we strictly adhere to that. There are no exceptions.
And could you tell our viewers why that's important?
Because it say that if you have allergies to the vaccine, you may have an anaphylactic reaction, and that happens within the 30 minutes period. So that is why you have to be under observation.
And our message to everybody out there, get out there. If you are eligible, 45 years of age and above, you must get your jab. You must help us fight the coronavirus.